Um, what I like to try to do with these sessions is make them interactive, right? So it's not the goal here is not that I'm standing up here lecturing. The goal is for everybody to walk away with some really good practical knowledge, and to ask as many questions as you want. I gave each one of you a hard copy of the slides, a summary sheet, which basically is really good as a follow-up, and one of my handy-dandy little laminated cards, which basically you can keep with you and always be like a killer networker when you hit the road. Let's see.
Is it working?
Well, now it's not, but it was before. No, I guess I have to turn it on. There we go. Okay. So basically, what I'd like to do today is really cover a couple of topics. I mean, and the most, what this whole session is all about is really, what's effective networking. Because everybody talks about, I'm going to a networking event, they're out and about, and everybody uses the word networking like, they're out there going to, do this wonderful killer job. The problem is that most people really have not had any kind of formal training, because there really isn't a lot of formal training in networking. And so people go to networking events and they don't necessarily come away with as much as they could. And part of what we're going to talk about today is like, how do you make it more effective? And what are some of the preparation things that you should be thinking about? And there's really, if you think about it in business, probably one of the most important things that a person can do is be an effective networker. It's building out that network of people that will actually be there to support you, because when you try to solve problems, usually it's not a one-person job. When you're trying to find a new job, it's not sending out your resume to 1,000 people that you haven't that you don't know who they are, because you're gonna be just one of 1,000 resumes that somebody winds up getting. It's basically, how do you get to the right person on the very first try? So we're going to talk about a lot of different things today and give you a lot of tools. So a little bit about my background. As Doug mentioned, actually one of the boards that I'm on is Angel Investor Forum, and that's actually how he and I actually now on a fairly regular basis see each other. But I presented here probably, it was probably like 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago even, and it was on the topic of the whole area of entrepreneurship, because as part of my background, I did 14 rounds of financing. I built up 7 companies. I used to buy the companies, build them, package them, ultimately turn around and sell them. Did that for 20 odd years. I started my career at GE Capital, first on the technology side, then technology management, sales and sales management. And for the last 11 years, I'm one of the senior advisors at Bernstein. So I'm on the investment management side. So I actually, as Doug mentioned, in my day job is actually working with family offices, high net worth individuals, and really managing their wealth. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I do a little bit later on, but I just thought that it would be interesting to kind of give you a little bit of the background. But my world is all about touching people, right? Helping people. And the world of networking is like an integral part of what I do today, and it's an integral part of what I've done really my entire career. I have a very complicated way of looking at the world, and this is one that you might want to think about writing down. If you really want to make sure to get the most out of it. It's complicated. I rank everybody a 1, 2, or 3. All right, 1's are the people I like, 2's are the people I think I can like, 3's are the people I don't like. Everybody, when you meet a person, starts out as a 2, and they're going to become over time a 1 or a 3. What do you do with the 3's? Cross them all off the list. There's actually no value in 3's for the most part, because think of this: a person that you don't like or they don't like you, the chances of them being helpful to you are pretty much next to none. So why struggle? There's so many people out there. Cross them all off. It makes your life a lot simpler to deal with. You start out as a 2, and over time, as you spend additional time meeting with people, you find out that there's a core group of people that you bonded with you that are going to become most useful. So it's a much simpler way of actually looking at the world, right? So everybody today starts out as a 2. For those of you that make it to being a 1, yes. For those of you with a 3, and by the way, it's not magic, right? But at the same time, it just keeps the world a little bit, it keeps it a little bit simpler. I think it's critically important that everybody really always think out of the box, right? And which is really kind of an interesting topic, in the inventors, association, right? Everybody's thinking out of the box. You're creating something new and creating something different. Well, the idea of networking is, again, doing things out of the box that people just don't expect. As an example, you go to a networking event, you have your own agenda, and you go up to somebody and you start talking, and if you watch what most people do is they just go spewing off their, getting off their chest everything that's important to them. Well, by that time, the other person really isn't listening to you, and in fact, they probably weren't even listening to you in the very beginning because they also had that same objective. And so, networking is really all about the other person. It's not about you. If you make it all about the other person, you become much more successful because if you allow the other person to get off the chest of what they want to say, they're much more receptive actually to listen to what you have to say. So again, it's the opposite way of what you might think. Networking is also about telling stories that people are going to remember about you. What's different? What's unique about you? And so I have a whole little section that we're going to talk about today, which is, why me? What makes me different? What makes me more unique? What's going to make you stand out and be remembered so that the next time that somebody comes and sees you, again, the next time they may actually ask you about that. And it's a way of really building up a relationship and standing out. And it's also a way of when you start following up with people, the more you learned about the other person, the more that was unique and special about, that conversation, the better connection you're actually going to have with people. All right, so most people, again, as I pointed out, aren't as effective as they could be. Most people, when they go to a networking event, rank, how successful they are by, how many cards that they wind up with in their pocket. Wow, look at how many people I talked to at the event. The reality is that it's not how many cards you've got. It's how effective your time was really spent and who did you meet that's actually going to be helpful to you. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is that when you meet people and you've got cards that you're starting to collect cards, part of what I'm going to suggest to you is writing down on the front of a person's card a couple of key things to remember about them, not so much on the back. Why on the front? Because one of the really killer secrets that people don't do is you go to a networking event and you've got a couple of people that you really want to follow up with, and what do? Maybe you write a note to them, maybe you try to call them, but maybe you enter their names into your contact database. But once that moment has passed, to try to remember who you just met at the different events becomes much more difficult. So one of the really simple things that I wind up doing is you write down a couple of notes on the front of the card, and you line them all up. You take out your phone and you take a picture. And all of a sudden you've got a calendar that shows you where you were. It's date stamped, and now you've got the cards. So up until these new people that you've met become a part of your being, where you're going to regularly follow up and become a part of it, your ongoing network, what I do is I continually look back at all of my pictures to see all of my cards, to see who it is that I haven't really followed up with and haven't built a relationship with. So it's just a really simple nothing, but at the same time incredibly effective. And when you're starting to collect cards from people, one of the things that you start doing is, this is a good one because I met somebody and it's going to be helpful. You put it in one pocket. This is a person I just met and it's not going to be as effective, and I don't think it's going to be worth my time. And not to be rude, you'd still take the card, put it in another pocket. When you go home, you throw all of those away. Right? Because it's silly to hold on to cards when you got a stack of them and you're not going to actually make it, where it's not going to be as useful for you. So, networking occurs from the time you wake up in the morning until the time you go to sleep. It's not going to an event like this to do networking. It's all the time, right? There isn't a pair of pants, there isn't a jacket, there isn't, a pocket, there isn't, my car, my office, anywhere. Everything I own has business cards in it. Right? I never go out of the house without business cards. I never have people over to my house without business cards because you just never know when you're going to need them, right? So, show of hands, does everybody have a business card with them today? All right, that's good, right? You just don't leave home without it. I love it. You go to a networking event, and all of a sudden, oh, I forgot my cards. How could that's like the first thing? Like if you got your shoes, you should have cards. All right. So 3 things that are really important about what effective networking is. The first is setting goals, right? By the way, networking is not magic. Networking, everybody could be really good at it, right? This is not something that you got to go to school for years and years and years. This is not rocket scientist work. This is not brain surgery. This is something that everybody, if you just follow some, very straightforward steps, can be really good at it. So, creating very specific, measurable goals. As an example, you go to a networking event. Most people, if I were to say, to most people, why are you there? Well, I'm here to meet people, interesting people. I'm here to meet people that might be able to help me with, but whatever. But wouldn't it be better to say, I'm here to set up 3 meetings with 3 people who can help me, right? And I now know that if I've only set up 1 meeting with people that can help me, I've not yet achieved my goal. And if I got 4 meetings set up, I exceeded my goal. But it's not magic. Measurable goals, right? Just going to meet interesting people doesn't really accomplish very much. Setting it up so that I've got 3 specific people that so when I go to an event, as an example, I don't leave until I have those meetings set up. How long is it going to take? I don't know. Maybe it's in the first 15 minutes, you were lucky. Maybe it's the entire night. But again, if you have a goal, there's no excuses. You got to achieve the goal. And because again, you're the only one that's accountable to it. You're the only one who's going to know that you achieved it or you didn't achieve it. The second one is, what effective networking is that, again, it can be for any topic. It can be for finding a new job. You're building something. You're trying to collaborate with other experts in other areas. You're selling something, right? Whatever it may be, right? Networking fits all of the buckets, right? But again, you define it. And the last thing is following up. Anybody have any idea how many times it takes to follow up before you actually successfully reach the person that you met at an event and you've decided that this is somebody I want to follow up with? You both agreed at the event as an example that, yeah, it's worth following up. Anybody have an idea of how many times that it takes?
5. You're holding up your hand.
That's a good answer. Anybody else have another answer?
4.
4. See, look, this is how you get it to be interactive. You just throw out numbers, right? There is no right answer, because it might take 1 try, it might take 10 tries, but the idea behind it is that until you have successfully gotten through, that's how many times it's going to take. Because many people, why networking and follow-up generally fails is people generally will say, well, I tried 2 times, I tried 3 times, and the other person hasn't responded. I guess they're no longer interested. Maybe they're just busy. Think of how many emails you guys get, right? Maybe they're just busy. Maybe you weren't top of mind at that point. It doesn't really matter. Until the other person basically says, time to piss off and go away, right? You keep following up. Why not? Right? What's the worst that's going to happen? It's the concept in terms of sales as well. What's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody says no. They say no. You say that's like just the start of the conversation. Now you handle the objection. Why did they say no? You're trying to reach out to somebody at an event. They told you that you connected, you were interested. Why? Right? So just because they even said, I'm busy right now, you say, great, you're busy now. How about we set up something in 2 weeks? Right? There's always a response. But again, it's the people fail because they give up. right? Giving up is like really the sin of networking. It's like you gotta just keep pushing forward. All right, as I mentioned, everywhere, from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, you should be exhausted because you've talked to a lot of people. I get home at the end of the day, my wife, was interested in chatting about like a whole lot of stuff. I'm like, I'm exhausted. Like, couldn't you save a few words when you got home? Well, this is what I do. I talk to a lot of people. By the time I'm done, at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I do these kind of sessions often as well. So, you come home later, and it's just tiring. I start my first meeting that I had this morning was 7:30 in New York City. Right? So they're just long days. And what do? You just talk to a lot of people. All right, so never forget your cards. You should have it with you all the time. If you're looking for a position, you should always have your resume. You shouldn't make it difficult for people to contact you. You can always follow it up with an email. You can always follow it up with a call, but there's just no excuse for not having it with you. You got pockets, you got, whatever. You got places to hold things. As I mentioned, networking is all about the other person. It's not about you. It's all about the other person. Yes, you're there because you have a need. There's some reason why you're there because you have a need. But in reality, networking, the process of networking, it's all about the other person, right? You want to engage the other person. If you're, the art of selling too is that the person who's doing most of the talking probably isn't the one who's in control of the process. It's the one who's doing less talking and controlling the process. That's really the one who's controlling that whole process. You're trying to build champions. You're basically, it's the last thing, the last point on here is so important too. It's a numbers game, right? It's quantity, right? The concept of coming to a meeting like this is you want to meet as many people as you can meet. The last thing, by the way, that you want to do is to go to a meeting like this or any networking event. Find a person that you like and spend the evening with them, right? And have a grand old time, right? I see this all the time. That, as an example, by the way, I'm on 9 different boards, right? So I'm kind of busy as well. So one of the boards that I'm on is the Fairfield University School of Business Advisory Board as well. And I did one of these sessions for a large group of students. I don't know, this was like, 5-6 weeks ago. And then there was an event here at the Quick Center that was forget the woman's name who was presenting. She was actually very good, but it was a reception beforehand. And a lot of the students that I had just done this session with come up to me and said, wow, it was terrific. We got so much out of it. I said, no, you didn't. You got nothing out of it. What do you mean you got nothing out of it? Because there were 4 of them, in particular, this group of 4, that was standing around a table, all having a drink, and they're all talking to each other. When you got a room full of alumni who can all be really helpful to these people, and a room full of all these other people that they don't know. Well, we don't really know those people. I said, what in the world? You went to a thing we're talking about networking, which is all about building up people to speak to, right? You don't hang out with the people you know. Or if, as an example, if you're building a company and you go to an event and there's 2 of you, from the same company, and you're hanging together or you're sitting at the same table, I mean, it's like shame on you. Right? It's like, no, that's not what it's all about. If you're there to succeed, you stick one person over here and another person over there, and you both, independently meet as many people as you possibly can, and then you talk about it afterwards. Right? Go out for a drink after the event. Right? Networking events are generally only like 2 hours, 3 hours tops. It's a numbers game. I love this one. Yes, sir.
Engineers are introverted and shy. Could you say a couple of words about that?
Yeah, in fact, actually, there was a quote. I don't know if you remember this. When I did your session, it got picked up in one of the newspapers, by the way. There was somebody there, too. Because I make statements when I'm talking about the world of entrepreneurship that there's 2 types of people that, in my opinion, shouldn't run a company. Engineers and founders. A founder, the reason...
in the wrong place.
No, no, because basically it's one of the most important things that I can tell people that are actually inventors is you're probably not the right person to build a business. You need that skill to get a business started. You need a product in order to have something to build around. But you're probably not the right person to run it. The CEO of a company needs to be the best salesperson in the company, bar none. You cannot, in my opinion, and I personally, and I've been involved in hundreds of companies. I coach CEOs all the time. I coach people in transition. I run a lot of companies. I'm on all these boards. The cardinal sin in terms of raising money, if you're trying to stay in control of the companies, to say, I'm raising money, and the first use of this money is I'm going to go find myself, I'm going to start building out the sales team. I'm going to get somebody who's going to focus on the business development. It's like, you're going to die. You're going to fail. You have to fail. The probability of success is low. Why? Because if you're a good salesperson, you're going to convince a non-good salesperson, who at the time is running the business, that you built up this giant pipeline. It's taking a really long time to build up a business. You're going to sell the person running the company how wonderful you are because you don't want to get fired, right? That person, because that's not the skill set that they have, can't look at the person who's now in charge of sales and say, you're fired. I don't need you. You're here to manage the sales process, but you're not here to own the sales process. At the end of the day, the CEO of a company owns the sales process because that's the only person in the company that's going to be judged as whether or not the company is successful or not. Which means that what I used to do in the companies, to give you an idea, I ran an electronic payment company, I ran a database and security company, I ran a wireless technology company, I ran an enterprise software company, I ran a multimedia company, I ran a lot. I never would run a company in the same industry twice. Why? Because that meant everything was doable, right? But what I would do is I would surround myself with the subject matter experts. Do I look like I'm the wireless guru? No. Right? I brought people in from AT&T. I ran an electronic payment company. What the hell do I know about that? I brought people in from the Fed. Right? I ran a database security company. I brought people in from IBM. Right? You surround yourself. You need the experts. So what do I tell people that are here in this room is twofold. One, recognize the fact that a company is an organization. It's not a product, right? And that's really very important because people, if you watch Shark Tank as well, I love watching this show just for the hell of it because I just think it's a fun show to watch. It's an industry that I'm heavily involved in. But with the points that they get across, well, they try to make it entertaining are actually 100% accurate. Nobody wants to invest in a product, right, which is a one-trick pony. You want to invest in a company. You want to invest in a management team, right? So, a founder, eventually you outgrow the skill set. But you need a founder to get a business started, right? You need it to get started, but very few people, doesn't mean that there aren't exceptions to the rule, go from the skill set of starting a business to the skill set of building it up. Taking it from a club into a company. And an engineer, by my definition of engineer, it's really the subject matter expert. Doesn't mean that they're technical. So in my industry, the wrong kind of a person to run, investment management firm is a research analyst. Why? Because they're so worried about, you don't want people that are looking in the company, building a company, the CEO of the company. You're selling to three types of people. You're selling to your employees your vision, right? Rally around me. We're going to tackle the world. You're selling to your customers, right? Because you need cash coming in. And you're selling to your investors, your shareholders, right? It's that simple. One of the things that I realized many years ago was that when I would, because I ran 7 companies along the way, I learned that, I need a company to be this, one of the problems of being a CEO is you actually need a company to be a CEO. Right? If you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, whatever, you actually have a skill set in your pocket, right? That you can actually still practice. But as a CEO, you need a company. So this goes back to you got to break out of it. It's sort of like, if you want to be successful, it's one of those things that you just have to say, I'm really going to be uncomfortable, right? I'm really, when I find that first person I'm going to really bond with, oh, thank God, because now, I don't have to worry about the next 2 hours of this. Forget about that. It's what I did to those kids. I basically took those 4 kids that were talking to each other and who said, what do I do? I went like this. I grabbed all 4 of them and I said, okay, I'm standing with them. I said, do you know those people standing over there? They said, no. I said, me neither. I said, let's do this. I card them all over. I introduced them. I said, great, what do you, in the world of networking, what do you do? I'm kind of advancing some of the slides here, but I'll skip over. So you've got 2 incredibly powerful weapons, right? I mean, you are possessed with these 2 incredibly powerful networking weapons: eye contact and handshakes. Right? So the 2 of us are talking, right? And you're just standing there feeling really uncomfortable because you're standing over here and the 2 of us are talking. What do? Well, I want to break into this conversation because I'm really I feel like a lone wolf. I'm out here. I really want to get a little bit safer. So the magic is you want to catch one of our 2 eye contacts, right? Why? Because the minute you connect with me, the next thing you do is you reach out your hand and you say, "Hi, I'm Scott Nevins," right? And and you're bonding. Like when you're driving, what's the thing that you don't want to let have happen? The last thing you want to have happen when you're driving in a lot of traffic, and you're going through a toll, and everybody's trying to get through the lanes, and everybody's trying to. What don't you do? Eye contact. Then if that person next to you connects with you, the next thing you know, they cut you off, right? Or if you want to get there, what are you trying? You're trying to get their attention, because if you can make eye contact and you're trying to get in there, eye contact is so powerful. And in the world of networking, it's a way to actually get into a conversation, and and the handshake, right? Because the minute I go like this, and what are you going to do? I mean, you're at a networking event. I mean, he's not going to keep his hand down. He's got to go like this, right? So he's got to connect. So it's a great way to get into a conversation. So what do? You go to events, lots of events. The more events you go to, you get over your fear of swimming. With the sharks, you're basically, you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And you go to places, like this one. Where do you go? You go everywhere. You don't go, the last thing you do is go to places that you think you should be at, right? You go to places where people aren't going to expect you, right? So what do I do as an example, right? I go to events all the time for everything you can imagine. Why? I'm there to meet people because I manage money, right? And the last place I'm going to do is go to a place where there's a lot of folks, from other firms, UBS or Merrill Lynch or anything. Why I don't hang out with those people. In fact, there isn't one of those people that are in my LinkedIn contacts. I can't stand my industry. Right? I mean, why in the world am I going to hang out with people that I don't like? Right? I don't, because what I do is very, very different than what they do. Bernstein is a fiduciary. The rest of the industry is governed by suitability standards. Firms like UBS and Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all of them act as middlemen. They outsource money to third parties. They charge clients 2 layers of fees. Clients don't realize they're paying 2 layers of fees. They think when the person that they're working with says, well, you're paying 1%, oh, by the way, since they're not managing $1 of the money, they've given the money to all these third parties, but you think they're all working for free? No, they're all charging another 1 or 2%. So people are paying a lot. When they talk about risk management, there's no risk management that they're doing because they've given your money to third parties that nobody knows each other, right? Where's the risk management in that? The idea of building a portfolio is everything is supposed to be designed to work together. Tax management, you've given the money to a third party who's not being judged on after-tax returns. It doesn't matter what the person says that they're concerned about taxes. You blew it when you gave the money to somebody who didn't care about taxes in the first place. As you can see, this is why I don't like the other people in my industry. So I go to direct marketing events. I go to fundraising events. I go to all these different kind of places. I come to places like here, Inventors Association. People here like, what are you going to do? Because I like talking to people, right? I mean, it's all about meeting people because you just never know. Networking is about, it's like an educated guess. meaning that, you're going to places and you're probably going to meet somebody. It's like a surprise. You just never know who you're going to wind up meeting. And that's how you become more successful at this. So going back, what a long answer to your question.
I distracted you. I said a few words.
Right. It's going to a lot of places, and it's breaking out of that. It's making the introductions. Like one of the things that you guys did in the beginning, when Doug said, so who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, right? What did you get? Everybody gave like a one-line answer. It's the kind of answer like when there's somebody who I don't want to talk to, right? And I'm in a networking event, and somebody I don't want to talk to, they say, well, what do you do? I'm one of the senior advisors at Bernstein. And then I say, yeah, what do you do? Because then what are they going to say? Well, like, what does that mean? Like, everybody comes up with like their own fill in the blank, and they're not going to. I didn't even leave an opening for the next person to say anything. But when I care about making sure that I've created an introduction, I say to people, hey, I'm one of the senior advisors at Bernstein. By the way, I'm not sure if you're aware that Bernstein is actually the only investment firm on Wall Street that actually manages money. So unlike firms like UBS and Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley and the like that outsource, Bernstein is actually the one managing your money. It's pretty scary since they don't have risk management. It's pretty scary that they don't do tax management. But that's what people pay for, and they don't really realize it. By the way, so tell me what it is that you do. 9 out of 10 times people say, well, wait, I don't understand. There's something that you mentioned in what I just said. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? I mean, I've given them short but enough information that the other person is going to say something, but it's important that you transfer control quickly to the other person so that they feel empowered to basically now ask a follow-up question. If I started drilling down without starting to get some interaction from somebody else, it's going to be too much information too soon, because the other person still has their own agenda that they're trying to get off their chest to say, this is what I do. Right? So you've given them enough, a little bit of a hook. They may ask a follow-up question. So that's the same thing that you guys have to do. One of the charts, as you're going to see in one of the charts, is coming up with things that make you unique. Resumes, as an example. When I see people with, put together their resumes, most resumes suck. All right, for the lack of a technical word. They all look the same. They all say the same things. They give like the functional thing that somebody did and call it a day. But if somebody's going to get a stack of these and everybody basically describe themselves similarly, why is anybody going to stand out, right? So it's all about what makes you unique, what makes you different, all right? So go, at networking events are like scavenger hunts. Go, just keep going. You never know what you're going to find. Make it fun, all right? Networking is all about defining your brand, right? Why do people play with me? Right? I work with accountants, lawyers, and investment bankers and others. Why do people play with me? It's because they know the world of people that I work with is a world that they want to play with. It's other contacts that I have, people would like to be able to work with, in my playpen, right? So that's what you're building in a network. You want people to see you as like that center of your network, so that people want to play with you and sit and learn things from you and want to be with you, right? Never stop networking. I mean, goes without saying. Again, it's a numbers game, right? I mean, it's quantity here matters, because you got to meet a lot of people quite often to accomplish your specific goal. You just never know how many people it's going to wind up taking. So your brand. So when I talk to people about this is a really hard concept. All right. So this is one where you really have to put some time and effort into it. If you were going to be describing yourselves, think about it. And, if I have any volunteers in here, I'm happy to go through this exercise with you. But the idea behind it is that what you're trying to do is to try to define yourself in unique ways. Like one of the things that I do, there's an organization called FANG that you guys may or may not be familiar with. It's the Financial Executives Networking Group. I regularly present to them. This is a group of, a friend of mine, Matt Budd, runs it. And what it is, it's a group of senior financial executives that are in transition, right? That's the new word. Instead of I'm looking for my next job, they're in transition, and they're a really nice group of people. Seriously, really, really nice group of people. But at the beginning of each one of the sessions, Matt basically does the same thing. He has everybody do their 20, 30-second elevator pitch. I am telling you, it's like listening to being in the morgue. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. It's like one person after the next person after the next. Well, I was a financial executive here, and I did this, and I'm interested, and this is the kind of a role that I'm looking for. I mean, it's like really you're dead by the time you make it through. And there's 30 odd people usually in these meetings. I mean, it's like you feel like you just had it. Why? Because first of all, what people need to do is when you are describing yourself, right off the bat, you want to have a smile on your face, right? Nobody listens to people that don't have a smile on their face, that aren't nice, where people feel like they're going to be nice and have a good time with them. If you're going to be too serious and say, well, if I were to say something, I'm a senior financial, advisor, at Bernstein. Okay. Are you going to come over and talk to me? No. Even I would come over and talk to me. Right? But, oh my God, this guy's going to be boring. Or if you're if you're in transition and you're looking for something, and you're describing yourself, oh my God, this is another sad sack who's looking for a job, and now they're going to start pestering me with my contacts to see who it is that I know. Come on, that's not that's unsuccessful networking. That is not gonna set the world on fire, and make it so that people are going to want to engage you and embrace you. So you have to start thinking. So as an example, my stepson is he's not happy in his current job, and he's looking for another job. And over Thanksgiving, I was basically doing this whole exercise with him, and the whole exercise is all about if you describe yourself, however you're going to describe yourself, and you just simply say to yourself, could somebody else describe themselves similarly? And if the answer is yes, you're not done. Or if you wrote something down on your resume, could somebody else said the same thing? Yeah. Everybody does unique things. It may not feel like it's unique things to them because they're very close to it. Sit down and talk to other people and describe the same thing. Say, wow, that's really interesting. That's really different. That's really unique. When you start describing yourself in unique terms, as an example, as I told you, thinking out of the box. I went to a presentation, like this many years ago. As a senior executive at one of the Fortune 100 companies. The guy was retiring. He was giving a presentation on, the ID badges, that people have. And one of the things that he was talking about was, oh my God, this was the greatest thing that I put into the company. I instituted this thing so that I could go around to all the offices all around the world. I'd walk into the office, everybody would be wearing their tag, and I would always be able to say, hi, so-and-so by name. Not that I knew him, but, the lettering was big enough that I could read it, and he was so proud of himself on that. So what did I do? I wanted to meet this guy. He did a good job in the presentation. Afterwards, I went up, I said, nice job, good job. Why did I do that? Because I wanted his business card. I wanted his contact information. And that was all I did as far as the interaction at that moment. But what I did was I had a chocolate slab about yay big made with my ID card, the photograph of this, with the key points of what it was that I wanted to talk to him about, sent to him. You think I got through? I mean, how many times does a person get like a 20-pound slab of chocolate with somebody's picture on it? Of course you get through. But when you think like everybody else, when you have a resume that looks like everybody else, people are afraid to do things that are different. Well, what if I do something that's different, and the other person, I lost the opportunity because they thought that this wasn't what they were expecting. Your chance of success was so low to begin with, right? When you send people resumes, it's low. Why not make it stand out? Go down, with a fight, which basically says, hey, I'm going to position myself as being something unique, different, special. Consider me. Maybe I'm not the right fit for you. And then move on, right? But if you just go in like everybody else, the chances of you being successful are low. There's just so many people always looking for the same thing. thinking about, again, creative lines. I described how I introduced myself. The version of I really just giving you my name because my name, rank, and serial number because I either heard you talking to somebody else. I looked at your tag. I decided that you weren't somebody that was going to be that interesting for me to talk to. So if you're ever in an event with me and I give that one-line answer, I guess this person, this was not somebody that he cared about. But if I'm much more engaged, the chances are I'm going to be more successful. It's not magic, right? Be the person that people want to come over to, because if they see how animated you are and how much good, you're going to get like people flooding you. I go to events all the time where there's other people who know me and they'll introduce me. Oh, this is somebody you got to know, right? I mean, that's what you want out of this thing. Does it happen overnight? No, but it just happens just because you just keep doing it, right? Practice. It's all about practice and making it perfect. Having stories that are non-work related are really good to have, right? Why? Because it catches people off guard, for one, and two, it's so non-threatening to the situation. So I'll talk to people, typically, you're at an event, and somebody will say, so, where do you live? Right? That's like one of the normal questions. I'll say, well, I have a house in Greenwich, and I have another house up in Rhode Island. Wow, you have a house up in Rhode Island? Yeah. I've got the funniest story to tell you about that one. What do you mean? I said, well, it was really an accidental purchase. What do you mean it was an accidental purchase? Well, I was supposed to be in Iceland. And instead of being in Iceland, I bought a house up in Rhode Island. Why? Well, 4 days before my trip, that I was supposed to go to Iceland, which was basically 2 years ago, Labor Day week, one of the volcanoes in Iceland started to erupt. And I did not want to get stuck in Iceland, if the volcano actually erupted. So we bailed out of that trip. We rebooked the trip to go to the west coast of Canada. We're flying out there now, Labor Day week 2 years ago. And lo and behold, it was a connecting flight in Chicago. So unfortunately, as most of you probably know, the airport in Chicago cut off in bad weather, shuts the airport down. The plane got diverted to Indiana, and we got stuck there for 2 days. So eventually, because we were only going away for a week, my wife and I bailed out, decided we're just coming home. Now we're home, it's Wednesday, Labor Day week. Guess what? Most hotels are booked, but if you want to go to the water, someplace beachy, Labor Day week, because it's the last week for everybody to go. So we were looking, Montauk, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. We happened to find an inn in Narragansett, Rhode Island. For those of you that may know Narragansett, I love the place, as you will hear. And so now we're up there for a couple of days, having a grand old time. By the way, never thinking I was going to own another house. But on the block, Narragansett, it's right next to the ferry that you can take to Block Island. But it was a cloudy, rainy day, not as bad as today, but it was not really great weather. And so it was 9 o'clock Sunday morning, Labor Day weekend, and my wife and I, there's a seawall that happens to be like, you never have a seawall without there also being a real estate office along the walk. So we happened to get to that one, and we go in, and my wife and I said, we'll just go look at houses for an activity, right? Nobody else is in the office. The real estate person said to us, what are we looking for? We said something, beachy, I guess, because we're not really in the market. You're just our entertainment for the next couple of hours. And she takes us to one house, and it was a couple blocks off the ocean. A little one up there, they call it a cottage. And it was used as a rental, and it was all decked out. I said, this is really pretty cool. I'm used to Fairfield County, Greenwich, right? I'm like, no, I can have a whole house for what they're saying, and it was much less than I thought. So I'm looking now, doing due diligence on my phone, and looking at comps. And I said to my wife, well, if we could get it for this price, maybe it's not such a bad idea. We keep it for a year, get rid of it. Next thing I know, I made the offer. Next thing I know, I wound up with the house. We loved it. We kept going up there, but we closed in the winter. And now it's 900 square foot house, so it's like really tiny. 3 bedrooms, tiny. Everything was small. So we found another house that was by the ocean, and we wound up selling that house, and I bought another house, and I just love Rhode Island now. So I spend my time now between Rhode Island and here. Why do I say that? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, it makes me smile when I talk about it. right? By the way, if anybody wants to see pictures of it, I got pictures. There was a drone. I have a guy that's doing work. A friend of his had a drone that was flying over it. Took pictures of the house. It was so cool. I've got cameras that look at the ocean from my house. I mean, so if anybody wants to see the ocean, they even work at night. Wonderful technology. Inventors, right? Somebody came up with night vision. What a cool idea. But that's what you want to do. You go to an event. You want people to like, wow, this guy's like interesting. He wants to, it's not only like, trying to beat me over the head to manage my money. It's like he's talking to me about all these other things and asking me about me. Well, that's successful networking, right? It's to get people to the point where they actually feel like they're enjoying spending time with you and you're getting through, right? But you don't want to spend too much time with people, as you're going to see. And I'm going to come back. I'll come back to that last point. So, again, surprise people. Don't make it about you. Make it about the other person. Wow, that was a shocker, right? This person isn't only there to talk to me about, killing me over the head with what they're trying to accomplish. They're asking me about me. You realize people think that the conversation goes so much better when they're the ones doing the talking. And then, again, don't be the person that's always being what's in it for me. What you should be telling to people, when you talk to people, when you're spending time with them, the question is, how can I be helpful to you? Right? It's not how can you be helpful to me, it's how can I be helpful to you? And the more times you say it to people, the more receptive they're likely going to be helpful to you. Right? Because people feel uncomfortable if people are nice to them. Right? We live in America. If you're being too nice to other people feel uncomfortable. They don't want to feel like you've done too much for them. They're going to feel like they've got to do something for you as well. Right? So it's kind of like reverse psychology. All right, you enter a room. So an event starts at 6 o'clock. Any idea what time you should show up?
5:30.
Yeah, early. You want to be before everybody else. You want to catch all the people when they're fresh, right? When they're coming in, when they're eager to talk to other people. The last thing you want to do is when the room is full and you're now just one of those people walking in the room, right? You want to be in there at the beginning. You want to be there at the end, because if there are stragglers at the end, one of two things with those stragglers. Either these are people you just don't want to hang with, that they got no other place to go, right? So those people avoid. But if you're really there to actually accomplish, an objective, the ones that are there early and late are truly most often the ones that are probably going to be the most valuable people along the way. So those are really good people to spend time with. All right, cardinal sin of networking, and nobody's got badges, name tags on. But the most common problem that people do is with name tags is they stick it over their pocket on the left side. So like if you take a look at where everybody's got, like, if you had a jacket on or a shirt, people will notoriously take their tag and they'll stick it where their pocket is on the left side. Let me show you why that doesn't work. I go to shake hands with Doug. Nobody can see my name. Right? It's on my left side. Put it on the right side, and you go to shake hands. He can see me. When you shake hands with somebody and you're saying, I'm so-and-so, two things. Most often people don't hear what you're really saying, right? So they didn't hear your name in the first place, or the room was noisy, or they weren't really paying attention, right? But people are very visual. When they see your name, they start remembering your name, and they'll say, so-and-so, I'm so-and-so. So you increase your odds of being successful of that by putting your name tag on the right side, not the left side. All right? Really, really, really low-hanging, easy fruit in terms of just improving the conversation so that the other person is more likely to remember you. Right? Because if they don't know your name, it's kind of hard to follow up. Even if you give them the card, you still want to make sure that you've done that properly. I talked before about eye contact and handshaking, which again are incredible weapons. I mean, really, think of it as your secret weapon of networking. Right? If I look at you, I got you hooked. Right? That's why, like, when people are doing public speaking and they're standing in the room, if they're looking down, they're looking in the audience. Like, no, if I look at you, I mean, for the lack of a better way, you're screwed. You gotta pay attention to me because you're not gonna look away from me if I'm looking at you. I mean, it's just, right, in networking, that's what you wanna do. It's like, whoosh, I got you hooked, right? And you use the handshake, to get it, to start the conversation. As you're gonna see, you're also gonna use the handshake and eye contact to get out of it. All right, you want to be in control, as I mentioned, which basically means you don't actually have to be the one who's doing all the talking. You want to control the flow, but you don't have to be the one who's doing all of the speaking. Keep focused on your goals. I'm there to meet 3 people to have a meeting, to set up follow-up meetings, as an example. In a mantra in your head. That's my goal. That's my goal. Have I hit my goal? No. I got to keep going to the next one. Don't go to a networking event without writing down on a piece of paper what your goal is. Right? It's the only way that you're going to be really meaningfully successful. At this, at an event. Again, focus on what makes you memorable. Unique stories, just something different, something that nobody else in the room is going to say. Right? Be just different. This is the time that being different is actually really good. Oh, and setting up the follow-up meeting. So if you're speaking to somebody, by the way, and again, next slide is going to be talking about exiting a conversation, but if you're speaking to somebody and you're really connecting with them, and you talk about, I think it would be really great if we could follow up and have an ongoing conversation. And the other person says, yeah, that's actually really good. I'm enjoying on speaking, and I think that this is great. Great. Why don't you shoot me an email, and we'll try to, and we'll set up a date. What the hell are you doing that for? You got your phone, you got your calendar, you're going to play email tag or telephone tag. So what you don't do is say, why don't we set up a meeting now? Right? Just like that. And because the other person might say, well, why don't you just shoot me an email? Right? How about, better yet, hey, we're having a really good time. I take out my phone, I take out my calendar, I'm looking down, it's still maybe a picture of my dog. But the calendar, they're not looking at my phone just yet. Hey, let's pick a date that's going to work for us. Well, you put the other person in a really uncomfortable position to get out of it. And the other person's going to say, well, okay, yeah, let's set up a date. The other person might, to feel like they're in control. Well, I'm really pretty busy this week, but maybe next. Well, sure, next week works. But if you take out your phone where the calendar is, you're controlling the process, which again is really important. It's a matter of controlling the flow of the conversation, right, and controlling the process. But if you can set up the meeting there, that's so much the better. Because remember, going back to how many times does it take to follow up? I don't know. Maybe you get lucky on the first one. Maybe it takes you 10. Who knows? Maybe you give up. But if you've got it closed in. So, all right. As I mentioned to you, you don't go to an event to meet and talk to one person. All right. So, one of 2 things is happening on that first one. So, you're spending that. You're not. There's a finite amount of time that you've got for a networking event. Right. Again, 2 hours or whatever that may be. So if you spend a half hour with one person, you could have met 5 more people or however many more people in that period of time. So one of 2 things is happening when you're spending time with somebody. Either you want to get away from them, or you're really connecting with them. In both cases, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time with them. But the way that you get out of it is different in both of those cases. So, one of the things that you wind up doing is, again, if we've connected and we're having a good conversation, you're there to set up meetings. That's your goal. You set up a meeting. Then what you do is, to end the conversation for good, to be able to move on, you whip out, one of your cards. You hand them one of your cards. By the way, when you hand people cards, don't go into your pocket, grab a card, and say, "Here's my card." Right? Cards should always be given, with your name going in their direction so that they can see it. It's much more polite to go like this than to just, "Here's my card." Right? Right? Do it, make it, and when somebody gives you a card, don't take their card, stick it into your pocket. Take their card, look at it, read it, right? In fact, by the way, 99% of the time I'm not actually really reading the card, but, they don't know that I'm not reading the card. but it shows that it's a much more polite way of actually doing it. It shows that they gave you something, you're taking it it much more seriously. You're reading the information. So even card exchanges is actually a really important thing to keep in mind in terms of how you wind up doing it. But so you give the other person the card, and you say, as an example, can I have one of your cards? Right? The other person feels like much more fulfilled because they've actually now given you one of your cards. You shake the hand, and you say, wow, it's really been great, and you move on, right? So again, you've ended the conversation. To the person that you're speaking to that you want to get rid of, right? Because it's, keep in mind, you're not going to only talk to people in an event where these are people that you're going to want to spend time with. You're going to talk to someone and say, oh my God, I got to get away from this person. This person is going to kill me if I spend too much time with them. Well, again, what do? Wow, we're having a really good, they don't know the difference. Wow, I'm having a really good time. Here, let me give you one of my cards. Can I have one of your cards? Great, thank you so much. Shake their hand and say, thank you so much. I hope you have a really good time. Well, sometimes they just don't go away, right? Even when you do that. So what do? Is you say, wow, I can't believe that someone, a friend of mine just walked into the room, and I haven't seen them in a really long time, and I'm going to go over there to talk to them. It's really been nice. You just look over there, you just point somebody out. You're just pointing, and then you go, right? And you want to pick somebody, by the way, not next to you. Pick somebody on the other side of the room, to do that with. It's you've done the other person a favor too, because again, you've already declared them a 3 in your mind, and you're not going to do anything with them anyhow. So free them off, so that they can go find somebody that's more useful to them. But again, and you've given yourself the most valuable thing that you can at these events is more time to go find somebody else that's useful for you.
Scott, I got a funny calling card story. I was over in Taiwan having dinner across from the president of the company, and his sales manager was next to me, and I had my plate, and the president's card, he had given it to me, and I had put it right next to the plate. And as time went on, I spilled some rice on the top of his card. The Chinese are very big. When you get the card, you got to look at it, and that's them and all that. I put it next to my plate. And so then some rice, brown rice, had gotten on the card, and the sales manager was looking at that, and I could tell he was getting more and more concerned about it. And so I noticed that, and so I finally said, I go and have dinner with all these different people, and I can never remember what I had, so
That's right.
Everybody laughed. I wasn't insulting him by sprinkling the rice on his card.
Yeah, again, remember to put stuff on the front of the card so you take a picture, you're going to remember. Now you're going to remember the meal, too. All right, and we're on that point. Write down, again, as I mentioned to you, notes from the conversation of people that you're talking to. You can use the back if you need to, but in all honesty, if you can write on the front a little bit smaller, if you're going to follow the advice of actually taking a picture of this, you get everything in one shot. Quite often, I'll have too much here and I'll flip it over and then I take a second picture so that I've got the backs. But and if you do that, by the way, label the front of the card with like some symbols so that when you flip it over and you write on the back, you can connect the front of the card to the back of the card, because quite often you've just had a stack of cards that you just put on the table that I can't remember where these notes actually belong to because it no longer has their name. But it's a really good point just to remember, so you don't forget people and so you do a good job of following up. And again, as a reminder, you're going to wind up with lots of cards that don't matter, and literally, what are you going to do with them? You throw them out because otherwise they're just going to get cluttered and you're not going to know what to do with them anyhow. And it doesn't mean everybody that you're going to meet is going to turn out to be somebody that's going to be that helpful to you, but for those that are, you want to make sure that they stand out. And sometimes, I'll write on a card, hot. Everybody come up with your own words that you want to write on it to remind you that this is important, to put a star on it, to do whatever you want to do, just to really single the cards, those handful that aren't only the ones that you want to save, but the ones that you really want to pay attention to first. You're the only one accountable for your success, right? So nobody's judging you. It's not like anybody else is going to know that you did a good job or a bad job of doing it. You're the only one who's going to know. So if you're going to do it, you might as well do it, in my opinion, a really good job. Make sure that if you set the goals, make sure there's no excuses. I mean, oh, well, this event wasn't as good as I had hoped. I mean, well, come on. There's always going to be good people in the room to meet, even if you. I mean, it's hard to have go to a whole room of people and you can't find anybody that you thought would be interesting to follow up with. Again, come up with creative ways when you're following up. If you send somebody an email, as an example, wow, we met at so and so. We talked about setting up a follow up meeting, and I'm emailing you to set up a follow up meeting. Oh, that makes me remember you really well. Right? I can see where you certainly stand out. Right? There's nothing unique about what you just put down on that thing to even show that you listened at all to our conversation that we had, or really help me remember who you are. Right? Because I meet so many people in a given week. If somebody doesn't give me a tickler as to the conversation, if they're reaching out to me, how am I going to remember who they are? Especially when you're not even looking at their picture, their face. You're getting an email from somebody who's like, oh my God, I don't remember who this is. So what do you do to those people? You ignore it. Right? Most of the time, it's like, oh, I can't remember who that is. So put something in there, and if you want to increase the odds that somebody's going to actually follow up with you, wow, I really enjoyed the conversation that we were having about boom, 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 boom. Oh, I guess this person was really paying attention. I guess I'm going to follow up with them. Your odds of being followed up on are really much better if you do something like that. I keep track of everything. I really do. You can't keep track of too much stuff. I mean, how often should you follow up with people? My thinking is you should follow up with them very often. What's often to me or to you might be a little bit different, but I generally try to follow up pretty much on a monthly basis with people, and I try to come up with different unique reasons to just contact people. Whether it's events that I'm holding, whether or not it's something interesting that just happened, out of sight, out of mind, right? You want to always keep having reasons to stay in contact with people. So you should make introducing you to other people, right? The world of networking, part of it is, hey, could you help me by introducing me to so-and-so? Well, give me the words to introduce you. Give me a short paragraph to introduce you. Make it easy for me to introduce you. If I have to come up with the way to introduce you, it's much more difficult. I'm probably not going to do it, right? I mean, people like things to be spoon-fed to them. So if you make it easy for people to do things, you're going to be that much more successful. Always send, thank you notes. It's not magic, right? But not everybody does. So, now the better kind of things, but I don't do this because, if you handwrite, imagine how many handwritten notes you get. Very few. But if you do get a handwritten note, it really stands out these days. I don't do it. I know I should. I always get a kick out of when somebody sends me a handwritten note. I think it's really pretty nice and pretty special. But following up is really very important. Again, spend your time with ones. Don't waste your time on threes. World of networking. Be humble. Right. The last thing you want. Remember, there's a space. If you're talking with somebody and I'm standing in front of Doug like this, and I'm talking because I'm trying to get my point across, he's going to be really uncomfortable. He's going to keep trying to back up, right? People like space, right? It's okay to be passionate. It's not okay to be aggressive. Right? It's okay. Right? You want to get your point across, but you don't want to be so in the face of this other person that it really just turns them off. And it's also important to watch the body language of the other person because you could overdo it, right? And the minute you passed up, you could overdo it. It's like I'm no longer listening to you. I'm just thinking, the minute you pause, I'm out of here. Right? So your only hope at this point is to just not stop. Don't take a breath because I'm done. But that's what people feel uncomfortable when if you're very, very aggressive, in the face of people. Again, please spend some time thinking about how to best introduce yourself, what makes you different, what makes you unique. You want that introduction, right, to be something special, right? You want, as an example, if you're in a room and Doug gives you the opportunity to give a very short introduction, that is your best opportunity to get everybody in the room to know what you do, and is that the person that when I'm done, you're going to go running up to say, wow, you said so and so, and I can't wait to chat with you, right? Because otherwise, this meeting ends. You probably still hang with each other who just came in, and you leave, right? And that's sad, right? You might as well make it count. And then again, you're the one that's accountable. So I have a raffle that I'm going to do. So don't just run out of here. But on that note, before I do that, I would like to just ask if anybody has any questions, thoughts, comments. Yes.
What's your take on contacts with people, the medium you use? I mean, because the phone seems like it's almost, maybe in your industry, it's more prevalent, but a lot of people just prefer to be texted, email, contact.
I hardly ever use the phone if I can avoid it. I mean, I talk to my clients on the phone.
No, but I mean, so what's your preferred
email?
Email's it, so you'll just keep emailing you.
I don't do Facebook. I don't do any of the. I mean, I'm not like I don't do tweeting. I don't do.
But if they didn't follow up with your email, would you call them a voicemail or never?
It depends. It really depends. But I try to use email. I mean, I work early to late. I absolutely despise telephone tag. The chances of calling people and actually reaching them is generally low. And also, depending upon if you're using the phone, one of the problems is that you might reach somebody and the conversation may last 15 minutes. And let's say you had a certain amount of time to basically accomplish a lot in a short period of time. So depending upon what it is, as an example, I save all my emails. I mean, I just never delete anything. And I have repeatedly hit Bernstein some ridiculous, 30 gigabyte limit or some ridiculous. I hit it like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, come on, give me just like a second email address that I can just offload the one stuff that I'm not using all that often. And I guess in the old days there used to be the PST files for Outlook, but somehow we no longer use them. There's some sort, because we're in the compliance world, so somehow there's a limit, and it seems to be 30 gigs between what's archived and what's active or something. So I save everything. So, but email and then I refer to it. So, but you got to make the email stand out. Hi, like if you just have like emails that don't stand out, like that are just like the non-unique kind, nobody looks at those. As a good example, I do a lot of events. My firm, again, in the compliance world, like there's a pre-formatted, approved by compliance, if you're sending out stuff to a select group of people. But I always put custom short little notes in advance of that, because how many pre-formatted email things, invitations do you get? You get a gazillion. Who reads these things anymore, right? Because, you need it so that it looks professional, but nobody's paying attention to what these things say any longer. You want things, so you put I put like what I really care about people knowing in the text up above. So I get really high show rates for events that I wind up doing. But again, I use email a lot.
So your subject line is your must-read?
My subject line is my must-read.
So what are some great tips for good subject lines? Great meeting you, blah, blah, blah. What?
I mean, quite often, well, if you're trying to set up a date for a meeting, as an example, I'll put in the subject line, does lunch on Tuesday work? Right? And then there'll be a letter, But because, how like when you're looking at the emails even on your phone, you see the subject line. And then how many times do you see the subject line, you never even bother to read the rest of the text? I mean, the rest of the email. right? So if the subject line, you know, again, I don't tweet, but the subject line to me is sort of like my tweet. It's like, you know, it's short, sweet, simple. That's the reason why that's the reason for reading my email. And usually it's an actionable kind of a thing too, because again, it's the kind of thing that you're trying to get that thing across. Any other questions? So, on that note, everybody's got a business card, correct? So, do you know Harry and David? You know they've got all those great pears and fruits and all those kind of like, ta-da. So, everybody put in their business card, and we will draw. Right? I don't have a glass bowl. I have a box, and it was pouring rain when I schlepped. Do you realize how much stuff I schlepped from the Quick Center thing? I thought I was going to die when I got here. Okay, well that was good. Thank you. All right. Cool. Thank you. You have a card?
Yeah,
Okay. So as you're looking for a card.
Oh, you're gonna throw it in there.
No, yeah, just so here's my card. Write your name and email address on that card.
So Scott, is this your strategy for getting our cards?
Is it? Absolutely. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Do you realize that? Do you know how many events I do?
Yeah, let me give you my card, and I'm gonna wrap up the meeting.
The card? Here. So write your name and email address.
So after these meetings, a lot of times what we do is we go out for a snack. Is anybody interested on this rainy night in going out? I got Moses here. We usually end up going to like one of the diners, perhaps Penny's. Is it only got one person?
Are you gonna go?
And also
I don't think so. I got too tired. I find myself it's past my bedtime or something.
Thank you.
Moses, I'm sorry. It looks like you're.
I'll go by myself.
You're gonna go by yourself, really?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, jeez, that's terrible.
All right. All right. So everybody's in. All right. So Doug, here you get to pick.
Who, me? My card's in there. I think it's a conflict of interest.
Boom.
All right, I'm not looking. I can't feel my card.
And the drum roll is.
Okay, here it is.
Cool. Doug Lyon. No. Michael Knight.
That's me.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Cool. Congratulations.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
These things are terrific. So enjoy it.
Thank you.
So hopefully this is useful. You've got my contact information if I can be of help to you.
And you always leave a car on the floor.
Yeah, right. I leave a trail of them all over. Remember, you can never have too many of these things. These things are easy to get printed. So if I can be helpful, please don't hesitate.
And speaking of cards, we have these lovely little IACT cards. If you want to give these to your friends as a referral, this is our way of doing, I guess, marketing or something like this.
There you go.
So feel free to take some cards. I'm leaving a pile in the front. And if you want to join IACT, I brought my little PayPal swipey thing, so you can do it here with your credit card, or we can give you a referral to join online. Thanks very much, and I hope to see you at the party December 8th, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm one of the sponsors, by the way, so you should shout.
You're one of the sponsors. That's very nice. Now let me bring up the party information so that you can see it. It is right there. So this is under, in case you're wondering how to get there, go to inventus.com, go to future presentations, and then when you scroll down, you'll see the reformatted URL for the IACT holiday party. And if you want to get in for free and you're an IACT member, just email me. And if you're not an IACT member and you want to get in for free, you can join IACT, and I'll tell you how to do that, or you can do that now. And then you'll get the code, and it'll be free for you. Thanks very much, and I hope to see you at the party. And if you're going to make a check, make it out to the Inventors Association of Connecticut, or just write IACT, IACT, and that's enough.
It's so great to see you again.
It's good seeing you.
Yeah. Have a good strong close of the year. So you're voting? Yeah.
Are you an
Yes, I have the 16. Soon to be 27.
I just had it in my ear.
So lazy.
I think it's under my eye.
That would not have been a good thing to say. Love Narragansett, but Washington.
Oh,
Parking. Hey, good. How are you doing? How have you been?
Right.
Good. How's the sabbatical? Is it almost over?
Oh my God, yes.
This week, so you'll start
Thank you for
teaching in
reminding me. I
January.
almost forgot.
oh, yes.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Have you got a lot done in the project?
Yes.
I did. I learned a lot about natural language processing. It's free-form financial narrative.
Thank you so much. I'm a gift officer.
Here,
So
all
this is very
different
helpful.
strategies for doing
Very
worse. And
Yes,
And,
thanks so much. And we are going to
stuff
be
that's
putting out
simple
the
works very well. And the stuff that's complicated doesn't. How about the blockchain stuff?
Right now, it's growing, usage is growing, and we're working with Maris on the biggest shipping line. That job is expanding, the work they're doing, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically.
What is your application?
It's basically taking shipping containers, which used to be over proprietary API networks.
Yeah.
So now that just gets, software that puts that on the blockchain and stuff, so that basically whether it's a QR code or barcode or whatever, in the important world, you can scan, they'll go to the blockchain to find out what was in that ways, where it's going, where it came from, you can build more
Yes.
applications into that. Shipping containers is a service.
Containers as a service.
So I could have one of the containers shipped to my house and fill in the stuff and hit a button on my smartphone and send it to
It's
China.
like all the data is in the cloud.
That's right.
Is a firm.
That's right. So now all these expensive EDI networks, which, because you gotta get all the ports in Djibouti and everywhere else, now you can take all that infrastructure out as long as they can reach the internet.
Right, so
They can record their information.
portfolio that
I'm always amazed at how many different
key reason
applications
why I
there are
spend
for
as much time
blockchain.
as I
Yeah.
do in the
And I think we're like at the first inning of a 9-inning ball game, and we haven't seen the last of it yet. I have a feeling
I'm on
there's an application for the Internet of Things, because when you look at like sort of as a futurist, and you look at what's coming down the pipe, you can see it's mobile, it's the cloud, and it's the Internet of Things, but it's not secure. And what people are doing is they're taking their sensors and they're having them reach out with these little codes which get assigned to the sensors and which allow them to configure into the network. And then they have to go and they have to configure themselves to a local Wi-Fi connection. They've got the SSID, they've got the password, and it's embedded in the thing. And somebody has to come in there and configure the thing to make it find the network. Then it has to use the little code to reach out over the web and start pushing in the data. And there's so many holes for security issues, and the configuration problems are so profound because people will change a router thing, and the thing that's out on the net can't find it anymore. And all the value of the Internet of Things is, I got the standard thing, and now it's on the Internet. Whatever it is. It could be a toaster, it could be a dog bone, I don't know what the hell it is. 10 years no security.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing we're working on too with like a light bulb. It just does its first boot record is to a certain place on the blockchain, and then that chain that gives it the instructions as to what to do. Because the other problem they're having with IoT devices is that you can't. All software has flaws, and once it's out there, there's no way to patch it.
So
configuration
configuration's
part of the
biggest
IPO,
problem.
and he'd be a
A lot of
perfect
people
person.
just say, well, we'll find it on Bluetooth, then we'll use an app, and then we'll interface to it, and then we'll
What
tell
could
it
go
the
wrong?
SSID, and then we'll tell it. It assumes way too much information because it tries to turn people into their own system administrators.
Right.
And that's not a good idea.
No, there's too many steps involved. Plus cost. It's going to cost too much.
Cost, and it's,
If you're
it's
Philips
not
and you have
robust.
1 million light bulbs out there, and you need to do something with them because
It's-
there's a flaw that causes them to explode or something. They're screwed.
Yeah, there's all these internet connected light bulbs.
Oh, yeah, and what's worse is that there are some that,
They can all be hacked.
yeah, it's like a speaker and a light bulb, okay? So, you can put speakers anywhere you like bulbs. But now, I was just reading, some Israelis figured out how to convert with software, the speaker into a microphone.
That makes sense.
Great.
I've gotta find a way to turn off this recording.